Your best creative work is trapped behind the voice that says it's not ready yet. That voice sounds like quality control. It feels like wisdom. But it's fear wearing a lab coat, and it has been running your creative life for years. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how perfectionism hijacks manifestation and how to dissolve it at the root. Neville Goddard taught something that most creators get backwards. He said the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the creative act. The finished painting, the published book, the completed song, those are echoes. The real moment of creation happened in consciousness, long before your hands touched anything. And this is where perfectionism becomes spiritually fascinating, because perfectionism keeps you editing the echo while ignoring the source. Think about the last time you sat down to create something that mattered to you. There was a moment, maybe half a second, where the vision was whole, complete. You could feel it. The story, the melody, the design alive in your mind like a living thing. Then what happened? You picked up the pen, opened the laptop, and immediately the gap between what you felt and what appeared on the screen started screaming at you. That gap is where most creators die. They interpret the distance between vision and execution as proof they're not good enough. So they revise, polish, restructure, delete, start over. They call it having high standards. The spiritual reality is different. They've abandoned the state of the wish fulfilled and dropped into the state of the wish critiqued. Those are two completely different frequencies, and you can only create from the one you're standing in. Here's what makes this tricky. Perfectionism feels productive. You're working, after all. You're refining. You're improving. But Goddard was precise about this. Dwelling in a state means your dominant feeling, your baseline assumption about the work. If your baseline while creating is, "This isn't good enough yet," then not good enough yet is the assumption you're impressing on consciousness. You're manifesting incompleteness. Actively, with effort and dedication. The irony could make you laugh or cry. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote about this decades before the modern self-help industry existed. She described how the word, the inner conviction, is the creative power. When you speak over your work with the inner voice of "this needs fixing," you are literally commanding the subconscious to produce something that needs fixing. Every revision born from anxiety plants a seed of anxiety in the work itself. Audiences feel this. Readers feel it. Listeners feel it. They can't name it, but there's a tightness in perfectionist art that repels the very connection the creator was desperate to achieve. So what does creation from the wish fulfilled actually look like in practice? It looks like something that will terrify you at first. It looks like creating from trust instead of surveillance. Sitting down and letting the work move through you while your inner critic watches from the hallway instead of standing over your shoulder. Neville called this feeling after the completed state. You don't monitor the creation. You dwell in the reality where the creation is already what it needs to be. This is where people push back, but quality matters. I can't just throw out careless work and call it spiritual. Fair, that objection deserves a real answer. The discipline of craft is genuine. Skill matters. Revision has a place. The question is, which self is doing the revising? There's a version of revision that comes from the state of completion. You're already standing in the finished work, and you're simply aligning the physical form to match what you've already felt. That revision feels like tuning an instrument. Quick, confident, almost playful. Then there's the other kind. The kind that comes from the state of lack. You're revising because you believe the work is broken. You're fixing because you assume it's wrong. You're polishing because you're terrified someone will see through you. That revision never ends. It can't end. Because the state generating it is infinite inadequacy, and no amount of surface adjustment resolves an assumption held at the level of identity. The ancient Hermetic principle captures this perfectly. As above, so below. Your inner state is the above. The creative work is the below. Change the below all you want. Rearrange paragraphs, adjust colors, rewrite dialogue until 3 in the morning. If the above remains, "I am someone whose work falls short," the below will keep reflecting that back to you. New draft, same feeling. You've been redecorating a house built on a cracked foundation. Now, practically, how do you shift? You start with what Goddard called revision, but apply to your identity as a creator, not to the manuscript on your desk. Before you sit down to work, close your eyes, feel the project complete, Feel the satisfaction of having made something true. Feel someone encountering your work and being moved by it. Stay there. Let that feeling become more real than the blank page waiting for you. 2 minutes of this rewires the entire creative session that follows. Then you create from that place. And when the perfectionist voice pipes up, because it will, you recognize it for what it is, a state. An old assumption trying to reassert itself. You don't argue with it, you don't fight it. You simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, again and again. This is the mental discipline that nobody talks about when they discuss manifestation. It's unglamorous. It's repetitive. Some days you'll return to the completed feeling 30 times in a single session. That repetition is the practice. That's the inner work. Something else happens when you create this way. The work starts to surprise you. Lines appear that you didn't plan. Connections form that your conscious mind didn't engineer. This is what creators throughout history have described as inspiration, the muse, flow. Goddard would say it's consciousness expressing itself through you without the interference of the critical mind. You become a channel instead of a controller. The controller produces technically correct work that nobody remembers. The channel produces work with a pulse. Your perfectionism has probably cost you more than you've calculated. Count the projects abandoned at 80%. The ideas that never left the Notes app. The drafts sitting in folders with names like final_v4_real_final. Each one represents a moment where you chose the state of inadequacy over the state of completion. Each one is a prayer answered, just the wrong prayer. There's a passage in the book of James that creators rarely hear quoted. A double-minded person is unstable in all their ways. Double-mindedness in creation looks like this: feeling the vision and doubting the execution simultaneously, holding two contradictory assumptions. This could be great, and this will probably fall short, and wondering why the work feels stuck. Consciousness responds to the dominant assumption. When two compete, the fearful one usually wins, because fear is louder. Your job is to make faith louder, and faith, in Goddard's framework, is specific. It's the sustained assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. Applied to creative work, this means you hold the completed project in consciousness as a present fact. You walk around carrying the quiet knowing of someone who has already finished the thing. When you sit down to work, you're transcribing, not inventing. The pressure drops, the joy returns, and paradoxically, the quality increases because relaxed attention produces finer work than anxious control ever could. Try something this week. Pick the project you've been circling, the one you keep almost starting or almost finishing. Before you touch it, spend 5 minutes in the state of its completion. Feel the weight of the finished thing in your hands. Feel the pride, the specific physical warmth of having done it. Then open the file, start working, and every time the perfectionist whisper begins, return to that warmth. Let the warmth be louder. You'll notice something strange. The work starts finishing itself. Decisions that paralyzed you for weeks resolve in minutes. The obsessive comparison to other creators quiets because you're no longer creating from deficit. You're creating from overflow. The work becomes generous instead of defensive. Perfectionism told you it was protecting your reputation. It was protecting your small self, the version of you that believes creation is performance instead of expression. The version that thinks every piece of work is a test you might fail. Manifestation. Real manifestation begins when you stop performing and start inhabiting. Inhabit the creator who finishes. Inhabit the artist whose work lands. Inhabit the writer who sends the draft. The project you've been perfecting into paralysis already exists in consciousness, complete, whole. Waiting, your only task is to stop improving the blueprint and start living in the building.